I'm making this video for two reasons. First and foremost, it's kind of a hell of a story, and it happened to me and the girlfriend, and I just feel like I want to share it. And the second one, kind of what's really driving me to record this, is scamming prevention. Now, it's a bit of a spoiler to say it's a scam, but I feel like that's important to mention because if you are somebody who is under the pressure of anybody online to send them money, you are probably dealing with a scammer. If you are being threatened, if you are being, put the fear of God into you, if you are being pushed and rushed to do anything financially, it's probably a scam. And under most normal circumstances, I don't know if there's like a hostage situation or something, we've all seen movies. In most real life scenarios, you can go down to a police station, explain your situation, and cops should help you. I don't know about your country or state or anything, but generally speaking, that should be a safe course of action, and they will tell you it's probably a scam. But I wanted to tell our own story just in case this is a thing. Now, let's go to the beginning, because the last 8 days of my life have been terrorizing, not really as much for me as it was the girlfriend, the victim of this story. And I got permission from her and another person later on you'll meet involved to share what I am saying now. And I got permission before I covered this because it's a little sensitive, and often scam victims are very, embarrassed or whatever. And that's normal because you feel like you were duped. You feel like you were a fool. And while you might have been tricked, that's what a scam is, it's also incredibly important to understand the context, which is why I think it's relevant to state that my girlfriend is Chinese, from China, living in America on a student visa, and she's getting her PhD. Very smart girl, but under a ton of pressure. Getting sent back to China is like a worst nightmare for her, and that is the angle they took. So it all started from a call, and I'm going to say kind of all the spoilers throughout this. I could bring you on the journey and instill the horror that we felt, but I just want to teach as I speak here, so I'm going to go through every step of the way so you may avoid the scam as well. This is how it began. She got a call, no, wrong air quotes. She got a call from Apple customer support claiming that her identity had been stolen and was being used in fraudulent credit card transactions, activity, basically. And they told her immediately what to do. Now, first red flag, anybody can spoof a phone number. That's just a thing. It's illegal, but a scammer doesn't care about that. I've been called by my own phone number before. That was a fun experience. Anybody can spoof a phone call. You should inherently not trust anybody calling you. If it's like a parent or someone and you can confirm their voice, that's enough. But AI exists now. If anybody is pressuring you to do anything unusual, even if it's a parent or someone, if they're telling you to do something that doesn't seem right, it could be AI. It's advanced a lot. I'm not sure if that was present in our case because she didn't recognize the voices, but just as a heads up, the world is a scary place now. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your family, but just try to be vigilant. So Apple customer support called her, fake number, real number, spoofed phone number, just trying to be clarifying here. And they told her that her identity had been stolen, blah, 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 credit card history. And they told her exactly what to do to comply with the police. That's red flag number 2. 1, I'm not 100% certain that Apple would tell you how to talk to the police. And 2, this is going to be a long-running theme of control. They are really doing everything they can to keep her in a position of submission and fear and anxiety, which is not hard for her. Very anxious girl, a lot of pressure just normally. And so that's the second red flag. First, it's a fake number or an easy to fake number, and then control. So they were telling her what to do to comply with police, and they told her to look up the government, Chinese government phone number that you could call normally. I'm assuming that's like the same thing as in America. There's probably a number that gets you into systems, but they said, okay, is this the right number? She said yes, and then she read it to them, and they said, okay, it's good. Do you want us to connect it for you? Red flag number 3. So they did her a favor. They just connected the call for her and then sent her to what she believed was the Chinese government. Now, all of this, if you're not ready for a scam, feels really freaking normal. If you're not prepared and vigilant and hyper paranoid about every phone call ever, you might just go with this and be like, oh my God, my identity's stolen. What do I do? Of course. And she's trying to stay in America. So any fear of crime is a big deal, of course. She wants to not, she wants to not break rules. So they connected her to the government, which ended up being an email. That's red flag number 4. She didn't catch it, and I won't read the exact email, but it was like name, kind of. It might have been Chinese. I'm American. I don't understand what is a normal name, but it was like name.numbers@icloud.com. I'm saying I'm not going to count the red flags anymore. I don't know what government agency. I don't know what agents are operating with iCloud accounts, but I don't think any are. If it's a personal account and you know that person, maybe it's a family member, maybe, but I'm thinking government accounts are going to be .gov or something, or at gov, whatever, at whatever official source. So iCloud was another red flag, but she didn't catch it, and got into a video call. And this is where they got sneaky. They interrogated her for like an hour or two, telling her all the crimes that were committed under her identity. There was a bank account with millions of dollars with her name at the top of it. And this was horrifying but believable. Identity theft happens, and using somebody else's identity to open a fraudulent bank account is what you would do, right? So it makes sense, kind of, even though it's insane and scary. And this account was dealt with all sorts of horrible stuff. I'm not going to get too elaborate, but, you know, murders, crimes, human trafficking, the kind of thing you would say to terrify someone, because they are saying, oh, you might be a victim. You might be involved in this. We don't know if you're a suspect or not. We think we might need to deport you to China so we can interrogate you there. That's another red flag, because we've learned, okay, she was just scared, and I trust her, and I believed her. And let me back up a step to explain something in a second, but I would just finish that thought to say that this was very scary, and she just wanted to do anything she could to clear her name. Now, before you say anything rude in the comments, she verified as best as she knew. I'll tell you what happened, and then I'll tell you my theory in a second. What happened was she met with this officer who was dressed and acting, I don't know, like you'd think an interrogator would. You would think interrogators are pretty tough. We might have seen those videos on YouTube. She and I have seen a lot of those. And the confirmation they gave her was like the badge ID and a name, and according to her, again, I'm just trusting my girl here, in the Chinese government, they have an official public repository database where you can look up every government official, and you can confirm that officers are who they are. And so with that confirmation, they had her double check, like, this is me, this is, you can see the number matches, blah, 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 I'm legit, okay, we can proceed. After that, she ignored all red flags. She missed a lot of markers. I laid out about half a dozen steps where you could have identified this as a scam if it were happening to you, but she breezed past all that. And once she confirmed that this was a government official, they moved on from there. Now, here's my theory. This is proven by nothing but just figuring. I think what they have is a scammer operation where they have the lead guy who interrogates people and is sociopathic enough to scare a girl into crying just so they can inevitably steal money. Again, no mention of money. It took them 8 days to even worry about her funds. So we'll get to that down the line. But this is why she kind of believed it, and me too, throughout the week, is because they kept never asking her to give them anything. So it was weird and unorthodox, as I'll explain, but kind of believable. So let me just say what my theory was, is that they have a person who is in the group that talks to people, and I think they just found a government lookalike. Either it's AI, and technology's advancing faster than I'm aware, could be, or they had just a lookalike. You know, maybe he just found someone in a high position, in an authoritative position, who looks enough like him that it would pass over a video call. I mean, they're using FaceTime here, so it's decent enough video image. She wasn't fooled, but I don't know. Yeah, so it's just a thing that I think happened. I think he just found a guy that looks like him, and they constructed a narrative to fit that supposed officer's position. Now, just to skip ahead to the very end here to say that this is what happens. This is a thing that happens. It is normal. In the end, when a wire transfer occurred, the number one thing, the page they give you on like a stack of 6 sheets, her receipt to this wire transfer, the number one thing they say is how to spot a wire scam. The number one is a person pretending to be a government official. That is according to the priority of how it was listed on the banknote, that is the most common scam, and why I wanted to share this story, just to get it out a little more. Even though I'm a Fortnite YouTube channel mainly, I just wanted to share this story because it's interesting and you might learn something. So I think he was impersonating an officer, but whether it was AI or just a lookalike human, I can't really know. But regardless, she, and I trust her, and I were fully convinced this was an officer. And what preceded was the interrogation as mentioned, and scaring her, saying we wanted to deport you, but because you contacted us, wink nudge, you contacted us, because you contacted us, that is really lucky timing, and if you're willing to cooperate, we won't have to deport you. We really want to keep you in the US. We're doing you a favor by keeping you there, but if you don't cooperate and do everything we say, we're gonna send you back to China and interrogate you here. Now, again, another red flag. The way the governments work, okay, one, US and China, not exactly getting along right now. This sort of cooperation, extremely rare, if it even happens. And you'll know why I know that later on. Two, if they're gonna deport you, they're just gonna do it. It's not a warning. They're not gonna lord it over your head. It's not gonna be a threat. And three, if governments are working together, they would just arrest you in your home country. As I'm assuming there's a facilitation going on there. If you did crimes in France and you fled to America and the two governments worked together, they would just detain you in the US, interrogate you for all the relevant information, and either release you, keep an eye on you, or keep you locked up. That's what would happen. It wouldn't be a threat. It wouldn't be lorded over your head. I'm seeing all the truths in chat because I'm recording this on stream. Thank you guys for validating this. I like to know that I'm giving at least good information here. That is how that would happen. I'm not a fucking lawyer or anything. I'm just a guy who tries to stay up on this stuff because scammer videos are fun, but that's how that would happen. It wouldn't be lorded over your head. So if you're somebody watching this and you've been pressured in some way, know that that's not how that happens. They don't need scare tactics. They're the law. They would arrest you if you were suspected of anything. And an arrest doesn't mean you're charged with a crime. It just means they want to sit you down and you can convince them you're innocent however you do it. Because if you're a victim of a scam, you're innocent. There are no police involved. This is just a guy trying to get your money in the long run. So, all right. Red flag aside, this is how they pressured her. And I can skip ahead a little bit because what followed over the week was a bunch of weird stuff that officers don't do. So, again, I need to tell you guys because it's embarrassing. It's hard for me to share this story because I felt smart enough to catch it, and she's not dumb. She's getting a PhD at 23. This is a sharp girl, but they scared the life out of her. She is a perfect, or was, now we're informed, but she was a perfect victim for this. She was extremely scared of deportation, extremely focused on her PhD. She needed nothing like this to go wrong in her life. She was desperate to clear her name and just really wanted to cooperate as much as she could. She breezed past the red flags. And of course, you're not looking for a scam. You don't expect that if your identity was stolen, it's a scammer, mostly. Now, after watching this video, maybe you would, because identity scams happen. Identity theft is real, Jim. Millions suffer from it every year. But it's a lot more likely you're getting scammed than an identity theft. All right. Just wanted to get that out of the way. So, she was a perfect victim. They pressured her in her scariest spot. This is exactly what they do. They cherry pick their victims, people who have a weak point, who are in a different country on a strenuous visa. I'm not going to get into politics, but immigrating to America, especially from China, is a nightmare. If you disagree with me, you haven't been through the process. You have not been. I have multiple immigrant friends and a girlfriend who have told me it is very, very complicated, and I am not educated enough to speak on it any more than that, but it's a mess. So the threat of deportation hung over her head and crushed her better judgment, and a little bit mine too. I was scared with her. I trusted her enough to breeze past all the red flags. So now that I've gotten all those disclaimers out of the way, I'm now going to tell you what they made her do. Throughout a week, it was 3-hour check-ins, and they were very aggressive. I mentioned earlier there was going to be a theme of controlling her. So what they did was they forced her to send 3-hour selfies every 3 hours. She was doing it every 2.5 hours because she's an anxious and scared girl. She was texting them constant updates. Anytime she physically changed location, went to the lab, my house, ice cream with the boyfriend, she had to text them the address and where she was going and when. This is not what governments do, okay? We know that now. We were just duped, okay? We got duped, but that is not what they do. No government official is going to be watching over you, requesting every movement. She forgot a picture one time and they yelled at her about it. The things they would do was like when she was on a video interrogation, because these happened periodically, they would get her back in video calls. I had to step out into the hall while they had a private conversation, which is embarrassing to think about. And they would yell at her for like putting her hand on her, like put your hand down, put your hand down. They would yell at her for crying. They would do anything they could to just beat her into submission. Every 3 hours or 2.5 hours, or even every hour in her case, was just constant. It was terrorizing. And I need to use that word very clearly. I'm an American saying this. I don't throw around terrorism. I guess an American would, so that's a bad example. But she was genuinely terrified. Cried every day. It was awful. I was with her more than I should have been, because that's another thing they do to control you. They said, because you are being involved in this secret operation, you're a suspect in a crime that is an ongoing investigation with a lot of different departments, and it's a really big organization that's doing all these crimes, and we want to keep a wrap on this. You don't tell anyone. That is a major red flag. If this is real government officials, you would be either sworn in, you would sign something, they'd put a gag order on you. There are official ways to confirm your silence. They don't just tell you not to speak about this. They don't just tell you not to tell people. From a scammer's perspective, the reason they tell you to do that is so that you don't get better judgment. Thankfully for her, I'm a trustworthy boyfriend. I've been clear to share the story now, but I said nothing for a week because she told me so much. She told me so much just because she was scared and nervous and needed someone, and I stayed over at her place almost every night that week, and it was that second opinion that I was able to give her, where she and I went back and forth every day, and we're talking about how weird this was, how strange it was, how they'd be really, really nice to her and say goodnight and have, a good day at work. Hopefully your experiment goes well. And then they would yell at her about frivolous shit and get mad about nothing. So it was like they were playing good cop and bad cop, and it's just from the same person, which was really, really weird. And now, of course, we know they were just trying to beat her into submission and get her in a constant state of anxiety and fear, which, of course, affects your judgment, which leads to the finances later on. So it was a whole week of this. And there were times when it invaded our life in a way that was not so obvious. Like, you'd imagine me stepping into the hall for a phone call is annoying enough. But there were times when he'd say, "Oh, I'll call you in just a moment." And she and I would hang out for an hour just waiting. I'm on the edge of the bed. She's at her desk. We're just chatting. No cuddling, no watching The Boys, which we've been just slothing through. That show, it's great, but we just, can't even do anything because we're waiting on a phone call from, now we know, a scammer. But even a government official, okay, governments are slow, so it's easy to believe all these little things we tell ourselves. So it was a week of just terrorizing her, constant updates. They didn't want her to stay over at my house, which we do every single weekend. That was extremely weird. And I said, why? Like, this is when I still thought it was a government. This is when I still thought it was real, but I was like, why? Why? They know where I live. She gave him my address, and we know why would they care? Now we understand that they are trying to limit her contact with me, my family, anybody that she might tell the situation to, because as soon as you get a second opinion, any level-headed person, you viewer in the comments of this video, I'm hoping it's going to be nice down there, because we should not blame victims. That is not a productive way to handle this situation. Most victims already feel dumb. They don't need you to say it, and I think coming down on people for being so stupid is only a way to make people quiet about it in the future. So if you have a family member who might think they're getting scammed, they might not share it because they're embarrassed, and that's not productive. That just keeps these stories quiet and prevents information from getting out. So that being said, Yeah, even I was like, why? Why would they not want you to come over to my house? And we stayed the night at her place, but I was there so much. It was good. So let me just skip to I think I got all the details out as far as like terrorizing. I can't have you live through it with us, but it was horrifying. I spent real life hours wondering if my girlfriend would get deported. I handled the stress by just cleaning her bathroom. I cleaned the floor, got all the gunk out. I just got her new floor mats for the bathroom. I even got her new shower head because her old one sucked, and it was sad. We didn't put it up immediately because she didn't know if she'd be deported. She didn't know if she'd even be able to enjoy the shower head. That's how real this was for us. It was awful. So this is when things got real. So the 8th day, the end of this scam, was when she was told that they needed to freeze her assets. A detail I skipped is that one of her updates was sending them finances. Every money in and out was tracked and reported and whatever, because a government can't see that on their own. I'm 100% certain if they need it, the US government can look at your financials. If you're a suspect in a crime, I'm 100% sure they can get a warrant for that. So why she needs to be sending them screenshots, who knows? But whatever. So especially the Chinese government, you'd think they'd be able to see. That was her theory as well. It's not me being racist. I mean, like, they are known for spying on their citizens, and she concurred. So anyway, it's just tricky and complicated. But they said they needed to freeze her assets, and they didn't want to do it officially through the bank because the people organized in the crime were inside the banking system, and they would see that, and it'd be a red flag. So I am not her handler. She does not need boyfriend's permission to do anything with her money. But I really wish she would have told me, because she went to the bank and wired them $10,000. Again, permission to share this story. She really isn't embarrassed. She was duped and taken advantage of, and she's been really strong through this, actually. I've been feeling worse about it than her. I guess I'm just the protective boyfriend here. I feel educated on this stuff. I knew all the signs. We both called out how insane it was every step of the way, and yet my mind, I said it all week, I never jumped to scam because they never asked for anything. I just assumed I would hear if money was involved before anything happened, because they told her, I should mention, they told her they were tracking her phone and keeping track of it. They said they were watching her phone, which I'll get to this in a second, but that is extremely hard to do. I don't know what China's system is, but I think that is really rare for anybody to be tracking your phone unless you gave them access through an app, which is often how these scammers operate. If anybody ever installs anything on your phone to track it, a government wouldn't need you to do that, I don't think. And if it is someone telling you to do that, make sure it's an in-person officer, at a station. If you're trying to be cooperative, you can go to the station. They would love that. So you won't be doing it at home alone in your bedroom. And they told her they were tracking her phone, so she couldn't text me. She felt uncomfortable talking to me on the phone. So I only got updates in person, and I'm a 30-minute drive. I can't just come over real quick. So she sent the money, and that evening, we're about 5 hours later, and she's telling me all this, and it seems so normal. Here I am trying to watch The Boys, like, oh, okay, well, they froze your assets. That's kind of a normal thing governments do. And she's like, no, they couldn't freeze it normally. They had to, leave me some money. And I was like, oh, okay. I just assumed that 10K was frozen in her account and she had access to 700 so she could live her life. I don't know how asset freezing works. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then idle conversation leads to her kind of doubting the situation. She's like, I don't know, this seemed kind of weird. They had me send them the money, and I was like, whoa. It felt like every red flag lit up at once. All the alarm bells went off in my brain at the same time. I was like, whoa, pump the brakes. You sent them money? That is the only reason I have gone along with this the entire way, is because they never asked for money. But that's how they get you. That's one of the many ways. Again, this is 8 days of pressuring her, scaring the shit out of her, holding deportation over her head. She's horrified. I mean, truly, genuinely terrified. I've never meant the word as much as I do now. And I said, you sent the money? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, that's not good. She was Googling things on my phone on incognito because she's just scared. I'm not going to make fun of her. She was just scared. And that led to more Googling and more searching. And I found a BBC article, which I might link down below because it's a great reference. And I think watching a 30-minute video on the topic is a lot worse than just reading an article quick, because the BBC article saved everything, dude. It laid out almost the exact same scam a month ago. Like, this is happening now. And it was the exact same story. Government approached her. Her ID was being used in crimes. And in order to cooperate, do this and that. And eventually she sent way more money than 10K. And I want to say, 10,000 means different amounts to different people. She has, not rich, but a well enough family. She has a career ahead of her with a PhD. Like, she's a woman who expects to have $10,000 back in her pocket, whether she gets this money back or not. So thankfully, in her specific position, this is not a life-changing amount of money. It sucks, and you'll hear later, we followed the steps to get that money back, and we don't have the answer to that yet. But at least it's not life-changing there. But to a lot of people, it doesn't stop at 10K. What they do is they'll ask for any amount of money. Oh, I mentioned earlier, this is how they get you. They kept her under stress, and they got her by not asking for the money. They said, we need to freeze your accounts. We're just going to hold it in a safe spot. And when I heard that, I was like, that is not how that works. I am not a cop, but I can tell you that is not how a workaround to freezing assets works. And I saw the receipt that her bank gave her, and it was sent to California, not China. I'm no geologist, but those are different places. And she's under a lot of stress. I want to be a little disappointed and I want to whatever, but no, I can't even imagine where her head was at. Rational thought had left. I mean, they're kind of... So one of the things they had to do over the weekend was, because she was checking in every 3 hours, the way they handled sleep was having her check in at a certain time. So she was texting them at like 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. and then going back to bed. So this was affecting her sleep the whole way. And it was... really, I mean, she's already underslept, she's already overworked, she's already constantly anxious. I do a lot of girl maintenance in this relationship, calming her down. Thankfully, my full-time content creation gives me enough stress relief to pass those savings on to her. So she's already under enough pressure. And it's, yeah. So she sent the money to a California bank, which was actually, I'm being told, fortunate. I guess I'm skipping ahead, but yeah, the fact that it's within the country is, fingers crossed, good. Maybe I'll update this video if we do or don't get the money back, but the fact that that's still in the country and it was a US bank, like US bank, like Chase, US Bank, JP Morgan, that kind of thing. It was a United States bank and the company was US Bank. It's hard to tell that story. So it's good that it's within the country, because if it went overseas, communicating with them is very difficult. So let me just back up to the BBC article. I'm doing this research. I'm like, honey, this is 80% of, it's different stories. 80% of what happened to you. I'm really starting to doubt this. And, my hands are cold now even telling the story. And I'm like an icicle as I'm starting to freak out, thinking the girl just got scammed. And we started going over everything I just told you and how ridiculous it sounded. And I was doubting it more and more and more. And I was like, okay, we have a few options. You can ask them for proof. Just say, hey, you've threatened many times to deport me. You're clearly working with someone on this end. I'm in walking distance of a police station. Can I just go meet whoever you're working with? They were infuriated. That's a red flag. I've watched enough scammer videos to know that they get extremely angry if you do not cooperate for a second. Real officers, professionals, should keep their cool. Real officers will be stern and strict and authoritative, as you'd expect, but they're not going to yell at you. They're not going to freak the fuck out just because you wanted to prove this is legit. That's not how that happens. So I said you can either meet one of their associates in person. 2, we can follow this BBC article, because there's the IC3 form, which is where you report online crimes. And we can fill out one of those forms and just see what happens. I don't want to wait for a complaint. I don't want to send it into a government system and just see what happens. Or 3, I've had legal issues before. I've had meanie people online find my address and send SWAT team to my house. So I have some phone numbers of people in the FBI. I will not be naming names or anything more specific than that, but I have a contact, and I was able to call that person at like 9 p.m. on a Tuesday and was able to just have a long conversation. 54 minutes. I mean, if I didn't have that contact, this is why I started at the beginning of the video. I asked my contact, like, what do you do if your boyfriend just doesn't have a connection to the FBI, as most boyfriends should, I think. He said you can just go to a local station. If you go to any station, whatever country you're in, you should be able to talk to a police officer and they'll tell you everything I heard from my friend or acquaintance. And we had a long conversation and they clarified a lot. A lot of what I've been speaking was on little advice. I won't quote them directly because, you know, this was not a situation designed for the public, but we got the basic advice. A lot of what I said was backed with what was said on that call. And it was like everything we described. He's like, yeah, that's sounds like a scam. Like, this is not how any of this would happen. This is not normal. No. So that was a huge relief. I mean, scary, money's probably gone, but huge relief. And walked us through the form and filled it out. And we were informed to go down to the bank first thing in the morning when they open. And it was what we did. And that was scary. I mean, I was filling out this long 7-page form, giving the whole information, all of her details, all of the recipients' details. They were in California. And she was crying on the phone with her mom the whole time because, again, they told her she's not allowed to talk to anybody. So she hadn't really spoken to her mom about any of this. And yeah, it's a long conversation with the agent, and I'm skipping a lot of it, but you've pretty much actually heard most of what we heard. This sounded like a scam, and we went in the morning. So before we go in the morning, she had called her mom, and the mom had gone down to a station in China, and that officer she sat with basically said, yeah, no, none of this is at all how that would go. This is not even close to how we would handle this situation. And just for good measure, they looked up the girlfriend's ID and was like, yeah, there's no ongoing case with her at all. So even we got double confirmation. It's not like direct, you know, it's not like he was at a computer confirming things, but I got confirmation on the homeland here that that's not how that goes. And she got a literal confirmation from China that this is not how that would happen and that there is no open case with her details involved. So for her, I could see the situation lift. Like, okay, this was a scammer. Because it's amazing to be relieved that you were just scammed, but you got to understand, we were under the impression she was 2 seconds away from deportation for an entire week. I, believing her and all the steps along the way, I didn't know. Like, every time she texted me with an update, it scared me because so many wasted tears. Oh my God. Anyway, went to the bank this morning, and that's kind of where the story ends. We did everything we could and acted fast. I'm hoping we could reverse a wire transfer within that time frame, especially since it's a bank in the US, but that is just all we know for now. So there you go. 33-minute breakdown on why I was in a bad mood for a week. She had it way worse than I did. And I hope that this was told well, because obviously no script. I'm just speaking from the heart and experience, and I think I got all the important details out. If I missed anything important, I'll pin a comment, but I don't think I did. I think minor details are less interesting than the grand part of the story. If this sounds like something you've experienced and you made it through the end, you might be getting scammed. Like I said, from the very beginning, you can just go down to a police station and ask. Like, if you are a suspect of anything, law enforcement wants nothing more than your cooperation. If you go down to a police station to clear your name, they will work with you. They will totally work with you. So if you are an actual criminal, then I have no advice for you. Maybe stop. So yeah, anyway, that's the story. I really don't know how to end this because there's really no outro. Like I said, if she gets her money back, great. None of us want to lose that amount of money. I'm not saying everybody would be fine with that amount of money. I mean, it was like all of her money. They left her like $700, but she will recover. She's going to have a good career ahead of her. I'm not going to let her be broke, and her parents are going to support her. So thankfully, it stopped at 10K. I think I got sidetracked earlier. I am so sorry. I hate missing anything. I did a good job up until now. This is how it progresses. It's late to mention this, but when they ask for that amount of money, 100% of the time, the follow-up is wanting more. So in the BBC article, the way that they held onto her was, we need this amount to know that you're serious or else we're going to deport you. Oops, we're actually going to need another 15,000 or we're going to deport you. And the number just keeps getting higher and higher and higher because they know how much money you have. They're just siphoning money away. And they were going to get her parents involved, get mom and dad to send in money as well. And it was going to get worse from there. So the fact that we pulled the ripcord on this operation at the first payment sent is the next best thing to sending nothing at all. So yeah. And if you're in a similar position and you've already sent money, you're now marked. You will be contacted again. They will want more. You will be in the scammers database. They often sell them to each other in like lists of victims that are known to be, I hate to use the word gullible, but you know what I mean. They are victims that are exploitable. There you go. Because honestly, Gullible's bad. She's not dumb. That's what shocked me and embarrassed me, because we are two people that I do not think are likely victims, and yet it happened. It happened. I should have been more skeptical of the situation, but I trusted my girl. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? So it's yeah. It's what's going on. And Archer's in chat saying he found the exact same situation on Reddit, and I'm just trying to add to that flow. So all right, that's it. Scammers, they'll want more, and if you're marked, just block. Screen numbers, find stuff out individually. She eventually tried to call the Chinese government number from the very beginning. Couldn't even connect to it from an American phone number. Couldn't even connect to it herself. If she would have said, no, it's okay, I'll call them myself, nothing would have happened. Nothing would have happened. Well, maybe she would have gone back to them and had them connect her internationally. I don't know. But anyway, your story is yours. Comment down below. I'm out of here because this video is way too long, but I hope that was entertaining or at least helpful.